Former Brooklyn rapper Casanova, whose real name is Coswell Sr., isn't going back to his hometown streets anytime soon. The self-proclaimed Blood Gang member who pleaded guilty to federal drug conspiracy charges last year was involved in a vicious fight yesterday at the Essex County Correctional Facility in Newark. These internal reports from correction officers say Sr. was slashed with a weapon by another inmate, Ulysses Lugo, and then chased him down with the help of others. We spoke with one officer who responded to the scene.
Inmate Lugo, you couldn't see his face because he was saturated in blood. You couldn't see it at the time because his whole face was saturated in blood and his whole uniform was saturated in blood. Inmate Senior was sitting there and blood was just coming out of his face.
A spokesman.
So here's how I feel about the situation, right? I told y'all how I feel about people being in gangs, right? I told y'all that I have older cousins, right? That were in gangs. I'm no longer in contact with them, but I told y'all how when I used to be around them, like when they would come over my dude's house when I was younger, they would, as a child, I remember them, having to get on me about telling people that they were my cousins. And I told y'all before, I don't believe in play cousins, play aunt, play people. You know how people got the play cousin and play brother. I don't believe in it, right? If we cool, we cool. If I look at you like a friend, I may call you Good Judy. I don't really care too much for the friend word. I may say Good Judy. But I remember them telling me even as a child, stop telling people that we are your cousins. Because back in the day when I would tell certain people that they were my cousins, they would say, oh, really? You related to them girls? You would have never thought people never believe me when I tell them they're my cousins. They're like, well, how they your real cousins? Tell me the truth. How they real? I say, okay, my mother and their father are brother and sister. They're like, oh, y'all real cousins. For real, for real. I don't do it like I would always say, and I still say, I don't believe in play, nothing. And just because we're related doesn't make us family. I don't know about nobody else, but I don't consider all my kinfolk my kinfolk. You see what I'm saying? That don't mean just because we're related, we're close, right? So as I grew up and became a woman and, branched off with my own home and graduated high school, graduated college, and on my way to grad school, I started to develop opinions of my own, right? But I remember as a child, them telling me some of the things that they had been through, right? And they will always tell me how it was important for me to stay in school because they could not see me in the street life, right? And let me elaborate. I'm sure we've all heard people say, when people are in a gang, right? You'll see how this relates to old boy, right? When you are involved in a gang, you have to be willing to do some treacherous shit, right? You cannot be PUSSY, as people say, right? You have to have guts. You have to be bold. And you have to be willing to sleep at night knowing that you done did some shit, right? You can't be the type of person that does something and feels bad about it, if that makes sense, right? The two cousins that I'm referring to, the reason why I always bring these two up, because I know I have been with them when, they would send me in the store because of shit they baby daddy did. And they so scared that somebody may spot the car and light it up, right? I have been with them when one of their stuff was getting put out on the curb because the baby daddy has brought so much trouble to the neighborhood. My cousin got put out. I have been with them when shit got real because of something they baby daddy did, right? So when I hear stories about people in gangs and the shit that goes on, I've heard people say, I don't believe it's that dramatic. It is. It is. It's been times when shit got so horrible, my dudes didn't even want them to come visit because they were so afraid that somebody may have followed them over there. And what made it so bad, one of them was one of the lead ladies. And she told me, she said she had to do a lot of treacherous shit that she planned on taking to the grave to get that title. And I believe her. I believe her, right? Back then I didn't, but it wasn't until my good Judy told me that he knew her. And the only reason why he knew her is because he saw her when we went to the movies one day. We was coming back and she was coming to visit my deuce. And he said, how you know her? I said, who, her? Baboon face? I call her baboon face. Booger Wolf? He said, yeah, stop it. Who is that? I said, that's my supposed to be cousin. Because we used to bump heads. One of them we used to bump heads. The other one, we were just fine. But the other one, the lead lady, I ain't care too much for. Still don't, right? He said, it's your cousin. How did your cousin? Y'all don't look nothing alike. Y'all don't even sing, two ends of the tracks. Not really. But anyway. I said that my mama and her brother, my mama and her daddy, are brother and sister. He said, you lied. I know you knew them kind of people, So I told him how we used to be back to, we used to, we almost went to blows one time. And he said, oh my goodness. He started saying, please, I don't want you fighting her. She rough. And, he was just, he was like, I want to cry just even thinking about you and her getting into it because he said that girl damn near murked you. He said the K word, but I know you too funny about that. Me back then, I wasn't scared of nothing. Long as you gave me my fair one, I ain't care. So here's the thing. Where I'm getting at is, how can I say this? Not to say that I don't feel bad for what this boy went through, but I'm going to put it to you like this. My dudes was telling me a story, I think it was yesterday, about a good friend of hers had a grandson, right? Not from my area. They moved somewhere else because he got involved in a gang, right? We hear these stories all the time. And, his mama knew that he did a lot of shit he had no business. But at the end of the day, she was one of the mamas that say, that's still my son, right? So instead of her trying to talk to him about, not repeating the same cycle over and over again, you'll see where I'm going at with this, right? Instead of her trying to talk to him and say, hey, son, this a new area, time for change. Let's change some shit around. She just thought the solution was up and leaving without addressing shit, right? Because as we all know, you can move anywhere you want to, but if you don't change your behavior or your attitude or your ways, you're going to run into the same issues, right? So, the shit going to happen anyway, but watch this, right? He moved to a different area, and he was in that particular area throwing up gang signs. His first argument, instead of him just having words with the person and letting it be. He chose to throw up gang signs, right? You don't know me, N-word. I'm rapping this N-word, yeah, and grabbed his nuts. He thinking everything all good. And then, a couple days went by, they pop. He met his demise. You see what I'm saying? First of all, as a dude, you got to be careful grabbing yourself when it comes to another man. Because from what I was told, when dudes do that to another dude, that means you telling him to suck his thing. Some guys don't play about that shit. Right? So, my response to my dudes, me knowing that little boy, as far as when I was in high school, he was in middle. I don't judge people off their behavior when they were children because I told y'all I was a hothead growing up, right? But I remember his grandma bringing him over to see us, because we used to love him to pieces because, we used to watch him and stuff when he was little and stuff like that. So you'll see where I'm getting at. One time he came over and he was throwing rocks at my dude's window. And, when my dude told him, stop throwing them rocks at my window. And he told her, shut up. So ever since then, I didn't care for him. You see what I'm saying? So I hate to say it this way, but I told my dudes, I'm going to just say what I said. I said, I really don't care. To be honest, because I'm like this. I have no sympathy for people, and I'm just gonna say it just like this. I have no sympathy for anybody that doesn't correct their children's behavior and then something bad happens. That's just how I feel. Because I feel like in a way you enabled them, you helped create that monster. So why should I feel bad? So, which brings me to my point, right? I just gave y'all an example of my older cousins, like I always do. And I just gave y'all an example of a young fella that I once knew. All three people were in gangs. And like I've told y'all before, one of those cousins, evidently she has been talking to another family member about her saying that she doesn't want to be in that gang anymore. Which I said to myself, I thought she said that she been, cut ties with these people, right? But it kind of made sense because like I told y'all before, she's always moving, right? And I'm not talking from city, I mean coast to coast, right? She's always moving somewhere else. And one minute she may be on the East Coast, one minute she may be on the West Coast, one minute she may move to North. When things got real bad, she moved all the way to Canada. She really been, trying to get the F out of Dodge, right? So she wasn't doing that at first. So maybe she is trying to cut ties, right? But she confided in a family member, which the family member gonna always come and tell me what's going on, right? That she knows in her heart, no matter where she moves, these people ain't forgot, right? Because as we all know, those gangs are everywhere, right? So you'll see where I'm going with it, right? She brought up how she wants to leave the gang. You can duck them all you want to, but until you tell them you're not there, you're not with them no more, they still consider you a part of the family, right? So she already said she is preparing herself to have to do something even worse than the things that she has already done to gain that title. And from what I hear, the stuff that they expect you to do is even worse than just the regular people. Because if you have a title, they have to make sure that when you do these things, that they don't have to worry about you going to run your mouth. Like it's something like, I guess it's something along the lines of they have to make sure you're not a liability. They have to have something to use against you just in case, God forbid, it ever made it to court, right? So when they said he renounced or whatever to get out the gang and something like this happened to him, I'm not surprised, because from what I'm told, that gang community is very small. Like, she said even when she was locked up, my cousin, right? Even when she was locked up, she could still hear shit that's going on out in the streets, even though she was locked up, right? So from what I'm hearing, things can get around fast. And you don't even have to be in that area. So when they said his face got slashed, in less than 24 hours after he announced that he didn't want to be a part of the family no more, I'm not surprised at all.